We're here because free speech is under attack. We're here because people are being convinced that socialism works. We're here because people are being judged guilty until proven innocent. We are fighting back with facts. This is not a safe zone, so buckle up, Buttercup. This is the raw, naked truth.
It's all about the numbers, and some of these numbers aren't being reported. Welcome to this Wallet Watch edition of Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, and I'm here with Chris Calandra of Elliott Wealth Management. Chris, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Eric. I've been looking forward to this, especially related to the recent Supreme Court decision that struck down President Biden's plan to forgive student loan debt. I prepared some statistics for us, and I'm such a geek. I was so excited to share them. So I've almost been like foaming at the mouth today, waiting for us to get online together.
Yeah, it is really amazing how very few people and almost no media reports focused on the economic impact that forgiving all of that debt would have.
Yes, absolutely. So let me throw some numbers out at you. I mean, first off, there's $1.75 trillion in student loan debt. So that's a jarring number, right? I mean, you're just staggered when you hear that number. That breaks out down to about $29,000 per borrower. And then about 55 to 57% of four-year college students have student loan debt. So that's kind of the basics. But here's where I think it gets very interesting, and a hint that our politicians and the mainstream media really fail us. And this data that I'm going to go through with you comes from the Federal Reserve, not partisan, the Brookings Institute, which is pretty conservative, and also Forbes magazine. But it found that 60% of the highest income households have student loans. 60% of the student loans are with high income households, and they account for 75% of all the student loan payments in dollars. Only 20% of the loans are with the lowest income households. So it skews that it's not the weakest amongst us economically. It's mostly 60% high income earning households. Even more than that, only 6% of the student loans are over 100,000. Now, Eric, when you hear the term student loan crisis, it sounds scary. I'm doing air quotes. Aren't you thinking about people that are swamped with $100,000, $200,000 or more in debt that would just be such a difficult thing to work your way out of? But only 6% of loans are over 100,000. Only 2% are over 200,000. So that means 4% are between 100 and 200,000. And 2% over 200,000. If you're one of those individuals, clearly you have a difficult proposition, probably. It's not what I would want for my children, but you're still talking about a distinct minority. Moving along, and then I'll get to the summation, but 18%, which is a pretty big number, have student loans under $5,000. You should be able to, in most circumstances, pay off $5,000 and not have it prevent you from achieving financial success, if not financial security. But here's the grand kicker in my mind. 56% of all the debt, so more than half of the 1.75 trillion, is debt for graduate school. It's debt for graduate school. 36% of that 56% are people that have their masters. Another 30% are people that have their professional or doctorate degrees. So the summation is the majority of the student loans are with high income households and folks that chose to pursue and secure advanced degrees like masters and doctorates.
Yeah, and that really flies in the face of the narrative that's being told, because you keep hearing people say, oh, these were 18-year-old kids that they didn't know what they were doing when they agreed to this. Well, no, these were almost college graduates who decided They wanted a master's degree. They wanted a doctorate. They should have been able to figure out what this debt was able to do to them.
That's
And
right. And when you take on debt to pursue a master's or a doctorate degree, take like a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, when they do have the degree, on average, they have much greater earnings power than somebody that has a 4-year degree, a 2-year degree, or a high school diploma. So there's a reasonably good chance that they would at least be able to dig out of that hole. You don't find a lot of people that had $250,000 of student loan debt that went to junior college. So they
Right.
are, in communicating with us, they are cherry picking the stories to create the narrative. The data, the facts, and this comes from the Federal Reserve, do not back up the anecdotal stories that you're given to support the idea that you're helping people. And it's not that I want anything bad for people that have advanced degrees, but that's not how it's portrayed in the media or by our politicians. And even, Eric, the politicians that oppose this, they seem to be morons because they don't cite this data. I mean, I think I'm pretty smart, but if I could figure this stuff out and find this information, including articles at Forbes magazine, you think some of the people in opposition would be able to give some pretty good arguments. They're idiots too. Is that a little mean?
You would think that they would use this information, and of course they haven't. And there's another part to this. It's all being portrayed as, oh, we're helping people get out of this deep hole, and they need our help. Well, first of all, that money doesn't just vanish. It still has to be paid back. So what you're doing is you're transferring the debt from, in many cases, these high income earners to folks that didn't take out student loans, that managed their student loans, that actually paid back what they agreed to pay back. And part of this is also a mentality. A little while ago, I read a book called The Burnout Generation. And there's a lot of talk about how these folks are dealing with student loans. And these are primarily millennials trying to pay off their student loans. And they're saying, it's too much. It's causing them too much stress. But in the book, and this is primarily interviews, so it's not even interpretation. This is what the folks with the student loans are saying. They don't want to get jobs that are making it easy to pay off these loans. They want to be social media influencers. They want to be writers. It's like, and I'm a writer. I've published books. I've had articles published all over the world. I can tell you, you're not going to become rich as a writer. So they took out all of this debt, but they don't really want to do the work to pay it back. So now you've put out this incentive like, oh, yes, we're going to bail you out. And that's going to put a strain on small business owners that didn't take out student loans or that took out business loans that they're paying back because they're actually contributing to the economy. And now you're going to take more of their money to pay off these student loans.
Yes. And that's not to mention people that didn't go to school. The majority of Americans don't have a college degree. Hey, could we go back to something you said before? Because I think you were onto something that's noteworthy. And I don't know if you knew statistics, but just instinctually, you get this sense. I'm looking at a Forbes article from the end of June 2023. And this is data as of the end of Q1 of 2023. And if you look by age group, the average student loan balance for folks that are 24 and younger is $13,700. And that's not good. I mean, I'd rather people not have $13,000 in student loans, but that's, again, not a number that should prevent somebody from getting married, buying a home, starting a family, all of that stuff. I repeated myself. And then when you get to 25 to 34 age group, it jumps up to $32,700. which is a hint of what you said, that young people, the ones that are being portrayed, are typically on average, and I'm sure you could find exceptions. Certainly our politicians are very good at doing that, but $13,700 doesn't sound like a crisis for an average balance. 32,000 is a bit problematic, but if you have an advanced degree and that gave you better earning power, most people would be able to achieve that. 32,000 doesn't seem backbreaking either, especially if you have a mind to pay off the debt, which is what I would advise as a financial planner, as part of somebody's wealth building plan, to get after this debt and pay it off. But I think you are really onto something, because 24 and under, 13,000, that's not how it's portrayed in the media and by our politicians.
No, and that's also a big change in the mindset of students. Fewer younger people are going after graduate degrees. Fewer younger people are even going to four-year colleges. There has been a spike in enrollment at community colleges as more and more companies are saying, you know what, you don't need a degree to work here.
Yes, and the statistics, I have a son who's going to be a senior this upcoming fall. We're looking at colleges. You've also seen a drop in enrollment at four-year universities, and most of that is men deciding for a variety of reasons that college isn't for them. You can make a very, very good living in the trades. There's lots of different opportunities, and you know, that is a sign that things are changing, because people are realizing that college may not be for as many people as we thought, and also that colleges may not be serving their customers very well, especially at the price they're trying to charge.
Absolutely. And, you know, I also want to bring up the student loan process has been vastly mischaracterized, because if you legitimately cannot afford your student loan payment, there are already programs that you can lower that payment. They're called income-based repayments. So you can also put your payments on hiatus if you are in financial hardship. So there are already programs. These don't eliminate the payments. They just put them off until you're in a better place. But there are these programs that you can participate in.
Yes, well said. Well said. I mean, so suffice to say, and I imagine you agree with this, I think the Supreme Court made a good decision. I don't believe the president by himself, whether it's a Democrat, Republican, independent, can unilaterally forgive over $1 trillion worth of debt. I think that's not how our Constitution and government is structured. So I like the decision. Beyond that, I think this is poor public policy anyway. And this data that we went through is just one aspect of that. And it, again, as we've talked about, it highlights the disservice that is being done to the American public by both our politicians and the mainstream media. At least that's my opinion.
And that's the raw naked truth. Thanks for being with us this week. You can catch every episode of The Raw Naked Truth, as well as Chris Calandra's Simply Financial podcast at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Audible, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech. We'll see you next time.